What's up guys, Josh here, and today we're going to be talking about the ZMF ORI, one of the more extreme versions of the T50 mods that I've reviewed in the past. So I want to send a huge thank you to the person and friend of the show who sent this out for review. I do really appreciate it. But like always, we're going to go ahead and jump into the build of this device. So these are, again, very heavily modified. You've got these custom wood cups, which are very, very thick. Like the wood that they're choosing to use on this is very dense. It's not like a lightweight wood at all. So it does have a little bit of weight and heft to it. Now it does have what's called a pilot pad on top, which is kind of this Velcro slip-on pad up here. And this does definitely add to the comfort, especially given how heavy this thing is. But it does also add a little bit of extra weight. And the pads, of course, classic ZMF, very, very comfortable and very nicely done. So overall, for comfort, I'm going to give it a pass, although for certain people it's going to be really, really heavy. Now, when it comes to the rest of the build, specifically like the wood cups, very well done. Like the machining here is very precise. They look beautiful, and if you're into wood, you're definitely going to like the look of these, and the quality of the woodworking here is top notch. Then one last thing about the build is it does actually come with balanced 4-pin XLRs on the right and left side. And the cable that I'm using in this video is actually a peri-apt cable. And speaking of what I'm using in this video to test, I'm using the Topping DX7S stack and the Massdrop THX789 amplifier to test out of the balanced output. And regarding amplification, what do you need to power this thing? Well, these are sitting at about 50 ohms, but they have a sound pressure level that is really low at 90 decibels approximately. So you do need quite a bit of power to power these properly. All right, so now sound quality. What do these things sound like? Well, overall, they're pretty smooth, pretty warm, and fairly enjoyable. Now, regarding the treble is something that is definitely present. It's not extremely forward though. Like it's not present or forced towards you to an unlikable level, to a disagreeable level, at least for my limits. I thought that the treble was fairly well done in terms of how forward it is, but I do have an issue that's not necessarily specific to this T50 mod, but I do have an issue with resolution. That's not something that the T50 in general, that driver doesn't do resolution very well. So I'm gonna have to knock it a couple points for not having really resolution even at this price range. And I know that's not everything you're paying for at this price range, but at the end of the day, this thing's job is to make sound. And if it doesn't do sound as well as other competitors, I have to kind of notify you of that. And so the treble tonality and presentation is fairly good, but it just lacks real finite resolution, which is a bit unfortunate. Now regarding the mid-range is something that is decently forward, doesn't have a ton of separation. I wouldn't at all call it like class leading or as forward as something like competitively priced LCD2C, for example. That's going to have very, very forward vocals. This is a little bit more stepped back. Now, this is going to play more into personal preference of what you like. Some people like really, really intimate vocals. Some people like them stepped a little bit back, and that's really what you're getting with this. You're getting much more of a room environment sound. Now, not overall completely wide, but just kind of the background instruments and the singers just come a little bit closer than my preference would like, but still maintain decent enough separation to where the music doesn't at all feel one-dimensional. And like I said before about the overall sound signature, this headphone is a bit warm. And you don't really notice it a whole lot in the upper treble regions, but you definitely notice it in the mid-range. And vocals come across fairly warm and pretty enjoyable for actual tonality. I like a little bit of a warmer sound signature, not completely dark, but overall warmer. So if you're like me and you like a little bit warmer vocals, this is definitely gonna fall in line with your preference. Now the bass response is smooth and buttery and warm, and it just has this characteristic of being kind of enveloping but not overbearing. It doesn't seem to be massively influencing the rest of the frequencies, but it's definitely a part of the music. And you know, you're gonna hit pretty low with this. You're not gonna have any issues in terms of sub bass, but when you put it on, it comes across as a mid-range warm headphone, but not necessarily a bassy warm headphone, if that makes any sense. Like it's not it doesn't come across instantly as a bassy headphone, even though there is a lot of bass to be listened to. All right, now imaging and soundstage. Straight up, imaging and soundstage are not up to par with other headphones that are $500 and up. The sound, like display, the sound staging, the sound field, it is not what I would consider to be one-dimensional like the GS2000Es, which still one of the worst headphones I've ever reviewed, were just one-dimensional, right? They were kind of like flat and that was it. And this is definitely not flat, but it's definitely not very dynamic in terms of its capability. You know, it's not something that can get extremely far out. It also can't get extremely close, and the field that it's given is fairly limited. And I'm not sure if it's my unit specifically, but I'm also not getting super finite imaging, which at the price range that this is coming out at is a little bit disappointing. Not necessarily a deal killer, because you can really like the tonality that this offers, and you can like the presentation. It's all personal preference, but so for that part, I'm not super impressed. But let's go ahead and jump into the conclusion. This is one of those niche products to where, is it going to compete with other similarly priced open back headphones? Not really. I think that there are better options for pretty much every circumstance. There's not really anything besides the tangibility of it that I can recommend over a lot of the other headphones, unfortunately. But where I can recommend this for is somebody who's like really into kind of the you know, the wood aspects of it, right? They want something like this, and that's going to be a particular type of individual who's not going to really care about my other recommendations in the first place. And so this is definitely going to be a niche product. Do I think it's for everybody? No. Does it sound good? Yes, absolutely. So personally, I do actually really like this headphone. And I know a lot of the value and the reason why it costs so much is because you get all the extra things like the pads and the custom wood cups and the custom coloration on this little extension arm here and the pilot pad and all that stuff. And it does add up. And as a business, you definitely have to charge for that sort of stuff. But for specific people, I think they're really going to be looking for an item like this. So I'll leave a link to these and a couple other things down below. Thank you very much again for the person who sent this out. I appreciate it. And until the next video, my name's Josh, signing off.